master could never be as vile as you.
Anakin Skywalker was weak. I destroyed him.
Then I will avenge his death.
Hello there. Welcome back to the Senate Podcast. This is another just short episode. I'm going to do short weekly episodes like this that have more of a focus on a specific topic rather than jumping a lot of different places over the course of an hour or two. These I definitely want to do more of because they're fun. But this is the Senate Podcast, and it is episode 33, I believe. Yeah, 33. So this is an interesting year for TV series, movies, for actors, for writers, because this was the first time in 50, 60 years, I think, that the SAG-AFTRA strikes, happened where the writers and the actors both were on strike at the same time. So the reason I'm saying it's a weird year is it kind of, limits a lot of people from talking about these movies, whether it's the people that worked on them behind the scenes, like the writers, or, the marketing with the actors, the people that we're used to seeing on screen. There was a lot less of that this year. And of course, with influencers or outlets, wherever you get your news from, it was limited this year, more so than it's probably ever been in any of our lifetimes. So with that being said, it was still a great year for movies, still a great year for TV series and all that. But I know for us on the podcast, for Tony and I, this whole ordeal this year really took the wind out of our sails for talking about TV series and movies. Luckily, this podcast is more so focused on, or trying to focus on, nostalgic properties and experiences and memories with beloved IPs, franchises, etc. So it's not like we want to cover new things. However, we love Star Wars, and with this year, we've had the best Star Wars content since Revenge of the Sith, way back, since the George Lucas era, and that would be Ahsoka. So I want to talk about Star Wars. I'm always going to have a bias towards Star Wars and a love for Star Wars, and I'm going to want to talk Star Wars. So I want to talk a little bit about Ahsoka. It's been about 2 months, maybe going on 3 now. It's been probably 60 some days, probably 2 months since Ahsoka. We've had some time, I've had some time to sit here and just think about Ahsoka. If it was good, if it wasn't good, and spoiler alert, it was amazing. The show was absolutely amazing. So with this short episode, I just want to talk about the state of Star Wars now and Ahsoka and what it means for Star Wars as a pre-existing franchise, beloved franchise. So, all right, full spoilers ahead. So if you don't want spoilers, let me make sure I make this abundantly clear right now. If you don't want spoilers, thank you for listening for 4 minutes, but goodbye. All right, Ahsoka, here we go. We all love Star Wars here. You wouldn't be listening right now if you didn't love Star Wars. You want to hear, another hot take or opinion about Star Wars. But, you can't deny that Star Wars has been having ups and downs for a long time now. Arguably, its entire existence. One of my favorite Star Wars movies, top 3, is a Star Wars movie from the 1970s, which is still contentious to this day. So it's been a long time, 40 years of debating and arguing over movies books, whatever, series in the Star Wars universe. However, lately it's been a little bit more, prominent because of the amount of Star Wars series we've been getting from Disney Plus. It's been 3 years, I think, exactly since the Book of Boba Fett. That was extremely, contentious, did not do very well on many different fronts. Kenobi was, hit or miss for a lot of people. It was contentious. Another one that was contentious. So, one that was unanimously praised was Clone Wars Season 7. I think everyone was high on that. Andor was contentious. I loved Andor. I think it was one of the best Star Wars projects since Rogue One, until Ahsoka. So that was a pretty good one. I mean, it was contentious among a lot of Star Wars fans. So I'm kind of speaking from the viewpoint of a Star Wars fan to Star Wars fans here. You might think completely different to me if you're not engaged in a lot of the Star Wars nonsense online. But if you're engaged in Star Wars nonsense, you know exactly what I'm saying. So, if you have that kind of understanding, and we're going into this looking at it through the lens of a Star Wars fan, then let's talk about Ahsoka as a diehard Star Wars fan. If you're a diehard Star Wars fan and you like what George did in the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, and the Clone Wars, specifically those projects, then you should love Ahsoka. It has a lot of new things that are right in line with what George established. It brought back a lot of things that George himself established. And it is headed by Dave Filoni, who is The Apprentice. Do yourself a favor. Go on Disney Plus, watch the Master and Apprentice short or documentary, whatever it is, whatever they call it on there. The special, I don't know. It goes over Dave Filoni and who he is, how he learned from George, the Master, and he is the Apprentice now. He took over. And this, I shouldn't say this is his, it's not his first project that he's led. He was leading Clone Wars, and he helped on a lot, including The Mandalorian. So, but this was his project, and it's his project because he created the Ahsoka character. Dave Filoni is the, creator of Ahsoka and her arcs throughout the Clone Wars. Specifically with her becoming exiled from the Jedi Order, which is she was always a contentious character. Her getting kicked from the Jedi Order was, that was different. A lot of things about her are different. So it's only right that the one who should tackle her in live action in a Disney series would be Dave Filoni, who is amazing. So the show itself, Rotten Tomatoes, I shouldn't even go on Rotten Tomatoes, but it's just a baseline. Tomato meter, so like the official critics give it an 86%. Audience score gives it a 69%. That's, that shows me that there's still contention with Ahsoka. So I would love to just argue that it is the closest thing to Star Wars we've ever seen since probably the original trilogy. George went in a lot of weird directions with the prequels. I love the prequels, but George went in such a weird direction with it that it left a lot of people kind of jaded, if that's the right word for it, or kind of just upset that it was going further away from what the he established in the original trilogy, with kind of this religious and spiritual themes in Star Wars. So Ahsoka brings that back. I love how this is very much a religion or spiritual type thing now, and not army versus army. It's more so theology or practice versus this just a different viewpoint. And sometimes they intertwine, and I'll get into that with the characters. So, characters. Ahsoka, she is awesome. She's like a Qui-Gon in a sense, where she just kind of goes and follows the Force. She doesn't try to be a Jedi. She doesn't try to be a Sith, even though she is a Jedi, but she tries to follow the Force and not the Jedi Council. Obviously doesn't exist, but obviously she left the Council, but she doesn't follow a rule set from Jedi. She tries to follow the Force. She is a character that was established in the Clone Wars. There was another animated series called Rebels. This is pretty much a live-action Rebels with Ahsoka dropped into it, and that is completely fine because Dave Filoni led Rebels, I believe. I hope I'm right on this stuff. I'm pretty sure I am. I didn't look up any of this before. Probably should have. I just hit record. So, Sabine Wren. A lot of people say that this is the biggest standout character of this series in a bad way. She is very much different from where we last saw her in the animated show. The thing about that is it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's bad because we kind of disassociate the character, but it's good because it shows, you know, a lot has happened and a lot has changed within those. It's a 10-year gap between Rebels, I believe so, Rebels and Ahsoka. So there's a lot of room there for expanding and character growth and development. It's not like we're picking up right where Rebels left off. So with that, Dave Filoni takes the opportunity to have her become Ahsoka's Padawan. I love it. I think it fits. And it's kind of this big debate right now as I'm recording this, you know, who can have the Force? And George said anyone can have the Force. The Force, you know, surrounds all living things. It's, you know, anyone can tap into it. It just takes discipline. And some people, you know, have it lucky. They have a higher midichlorian count. Some people don't. Obi-Wan has a low midichlorian count. Come on, people. You're supposed to love Star Wars. You're supposed to know this stuff. Obi-Wan has a pretty low midichlorian count, but he is extremely skilled in, you know, fighting and just his own capabilities. But his midichlorian count's low. Anakin has a lot of, you know, issues that he's dealing with himself, but he has a very high midichlorian count. So anyone can have the Force. Midichlorians, you know, they're cool. It's a cool way to explain it, but Sabine can definitely be a Padawan, and I like her in that role. I think she's awesome, especially because in Rebels, you know, she sees the relationship between Kanan and Ezra, and obviously Ezra goes missing with Thrawn, and we meet them both again in this show. So Sabine becomes the Padawan to Ahsoka. I'll get back to that. I just got, there's so much with this. All right, we got time. I'm gonna go through it, guys. I'm gonna get to it. We have Ezra and Thrawn showing back up, and what happens is Ahsoka and Ahsoka. She travels with those whales, those whales from Rebels. I'm not even sure what they're called. I'm sorry. They're just like whales that can I guess kind of use the Force or tap into light speed. You know, so she uses the whales to go and follow the route Ezra took to the, you know, where him and Thrawn ended up in another galaxy. We're going to put a pin in that galaxy part. That's one of the coolest things that Dave Filoni introduces in this series, is a brand new galaxy outside of the Star Wars galaxy we've known this entire time within Star Wars. Aside from some of the books, the Yuzong Vong and some of the other, you know, deep cut legend, you know, material. So Ezra, he's my favorite. He's my favorite overall character in the show because of how much time we see him on screen. I do have somebody else that I like a little bit more in this series than Ezra, but Ezra just has so much more time on screen than the other person I'm thinking of, or just moments to shine, and the actor kills it. Ezra is awesome. The way he uses the Force without a lightsaber and says that he just needs the Force, and he uses this Force like kung fu, and he just kind of gets overwhelmed at some point and then just grabs a lightsaber and just goes off. It's awesome. The lightsaber fighting in this show, absolutely amazing. A little bit different and weird in some parts, but in other parts it just felt like it was a continuation of the prequels. So I like how this series did feel like a great mixture between the originals and the prequels, with some animated series stuff thrown in there. And then Thrawn. So Thrawn is in there, played by Lars Mikkelsen, I believe that's his name, from Rebels. He does a great job. He's so calculated. I like that he is not a Force wielder or a Sith. He is just an admiral who's super smart, always 10 steps ahead. He's awesome. Great characters that are returning from Rebels. All right, new characters. Baylan and Shin Hati. Baylan Skull and Shin Hati. So let me look up a little bit about these guys. These are, I'm pretty sure they're original to this show. Baylan, we'll start with Baylan, because he is actually my favorite character in the show, but he just didn't have as much time, in my opinion, that Ezra had to really shine. But in the little bit he was there and the little bit he did amazing. If you watched it, Ray Stevenson killed it. So sad that he passed away. But watching this first season back and seeing his performance was incredible. He is a lightsaber wielding mercenary for hire, overseeing his apprentice Shin Hati. But make no mistake, although there was a time when Skull knew the acclaimed Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker and was a part of the Jedi Order, Baylan is no Jedi. But he's also no Sith. It's interesting to see his lightsaber, that it's more of an orange color. He is sort of like the antithesis of Ahsoka in a way. He's not a typical Sith, just as Ahsoka is no typical Jedi. His performance, amazing. Shin Hati, great performance. This is, these are two actors and performances right here that shine without saying much, without exposition. They just shine with their performances, their acting, their fighting, their the subtleties in their performances with their gestures, or just they put so much charm into these characters that was really kind of missing from Star Wars. So I think that was just obviously a standout part of this series. It was cool to see some returning characters from Rebels 2, like Chopper was in there as a cameo. Not a cameo, I shouldn't say that. He was in there. And Harrison Dula was in there a little bit. 3PO was actually a cameo. And then I want to end this by just talking about the biggest thing of the show, which is obviously Anakin showing back up in the world between worlds. This was not a Force ghost. This was not some kind of projection or whatever. This was Anakin Skywalker himself. And I want to pull up what Hayden Christensen said about it, but I'll kind of try to talk as I say that. This was the world between worlds is a physical place. I'm not gonna be able to find it. It's not like a made up in her mind, in Ahsoka's mind. She got pulled into the world between worlds again, as was explained in Rebels. Just watch Rebels, the World Between Worlds episode. I believe it's season 3. Anakin was there, and Ahsoka was at one point in time his apprentice. She left the Order, left being his apprentice, and she was kind of a Jedi in exile, but she came back to become Sabine Wren's master. So now she's stepping into the master role, and in order to do that, she kind of had to finish her training with Anakin, which is exactly what happens in this show. She goes into the world between worlds because she was about to die. She gets pulled in. She's outside of time. Like the name kind of suggests, a world between worlds. She's outside of it, and she's able to kind of exist in a space with Anakin Skywalker. And he says that he needs to finish her training. And what he tries to teach her is about what it takes to be a master, to be a leader. And he does that by kind of going and showing her flashbacks. We see Clone Wars flashbacks of them both as they were in the Clone Wars, but this time live action. We see a cameo of Rex. Awesome. To see him in live action, it was cool. And then to see young Ahsoka, a younger Anakin, and him trying to teach her that you have to make the hard decisions as a master. Beautiful the way they did it. You got to see Anakin kind of going between his light side and dark side, channeling the defensive form, or the more not as aggressive form as he fought with a blue lightsaber as Anakin, and then he tapped into his Vader and became very aggressive with his red saber to try to provoke her, which at one point he did. And she just learns from this. He's teaching her final lesson, the last thing that he can teach her. And it was cool seeing Ahsoka finish her training with Anakin here in their interactions. Obviously, Hayden Christensen killed it. He was probably a lot of people's favorite character in this. I think this is his best performance as that character. Obviously, I think his best movie was Revenge of the Sith. Come on, let's be honest. But he kills the character in the series, unlike he did in the prequel. So I'm glad he got his moment in this. I'm probably forgetting some stuff, but yeah, it was awesome seeing the Night Sisters. What was her name? Morgan. Fighting. She got the blade of Talzin blade, something like that. And it was cool seeing like this samurai, enchanted, sword versus a lightsaber in this other galaxy that they go to, that I will end this video talking about, is kind of inspired by like old ancient like Romans / kind of maybe like samurai, inspired, designs and architecture, I guess. Maybe just the way things were kind of constructed. Maybe it wasn't like the galaxy was like that, but that's just the way they chose to do it. Let me look at the armor for those stormtroopers that were left with Thrawn. They look amazing. Enoch, I think it was a general in that army. Amazing. Or captain, I think it was Captain Enoch. He was amazing. What else? The planet was interesting. The little Ninja Turtles, they were cool. I don't know if they were force sensitive, but Ezra was with them trying to teach them, and the story itself, like the plot, the actual story, it was good. Ahsoka was being hunted by the mercenaries, by Baylan and Shin, so they were trying to get the map from her to get to this other galaxy to find Thrawn. She was wanting to get there to find Ezra. Long story short, they both end up getting there. Baylan and Shin find Thrawn. With Morgan, they find Thrawn because they want to get Thrawn back to the galaxy, because obviously the Emperor died, so they're trying to take over the Star Wars galaxy we know. And then Ahsoka and Sabine get there. They find Ezra. They reunite. The last episode is probably my favorite. I'm sorry. I love the flashbacks with Anakin. They were amazing. It wasn't just fan service. It had a purpose. And that purpose really concluded with the, completing Ahsoka's training, which was amazing. And that made for that finale to hit so hard when at the end you see Anakin looking out over, Ahsoka and Sabine, because Ahsoka and Sabine are now trapped. They're trapped in this other galaxy on this planet, and Thrawn, however, made it back to the Star Wars galaxy we know with Ezra, Ezra ended up escaping. So Ezra's now reunited with Chopper, Hera, and Thrawn is now back to take over the galaxy we're familiar with. While Ahsoka, Sabine, and also Balin and Shin are trapped on this weird, on this planet with this weird connection to the Force, the Father, the Son, and the daughter. It's the ending is very much the end of an animated series type of thing. And this was definitely season 5 of Rebels, with heavily, inspired moments and lore from the original trilogy, with a lot of paying homage to the prequels. So I think this is up there as one of the greatest Star Wars projects ever. I saw somebody on Twitter earlier ask, how would you rate the overall trilogies on a scale of 1 to 10? I'll go in chronological order. Original trilogy. I think the original trilogy is a 9 out of 10. Almost perfect. Almost. I think there are some questionable, like in all the trilogies, directing. But for what they could accomplish, especially with a story and the story they try to tell, which is actually kind of a tight story between a father and a son throughout, and obviously Resistance versus an Empire in original trilogy, it's almost perfect. I mean, it's amazing. You got some of the greatest Star Wars movies in that trilogy. 9 out of 10. Prequel trilogy, 8 out of 10. It was the execution, obviously, the dialogue, some of the directing. The execution fell flat more so in the prequel trilogy than it did in the original trilogy. I liked it personally. However, I think episode 1 and 2 are low, and episode 3 is like high. So episode 3 is carrying that trilogy, unlike the original trilogy where you could make a case for all 3 of them. And then the sequels, I give probably about a 4 out of 10 because there's a lot to love about that trilogy, but it just stands apart. And it could stand apart for you in a very good way. You can say, oh, this stands apart because it's amazing. For me, it stands apart because it just doesn't fit. And there's, I could definitely get into that. And what's funny is we actually have to finish our sequel trilogy retrospective, where we will dive into some hot takes about things we love about the sequels and things that we just don't like about the sequels. We feel like it doesn't fit. So that's where the trilogies sit for me. Ahsoka, 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10. You almost cannot get better than it. Only problem, I think, is just some pacing, because it's a series. Some of the pacing and some of the combat. No, the combat was good. I don't know. Some of just the pacing and some of the moments in the episodes, I think it was just because it was a series and they tried to spread it out. If this was a movie or a limited series of 4 to 5 episodes, I think it would have been a tighter experience and more close to maybe a 9 out of 10. But it's an 8 out of 10. It's amazing. So that's my thoughts on Ahsoka. I think Star Wars is headed in the right direction. We got some news about Skeleton Crew and Acolyte and some of the upcoming projects. Andor possibly delayed till 2025, but I can't wait for season 2 of that. So Star Wars is in a good state, not the best state, but now Dave Filoni's in charge. Okay, so things are looking up. Star Wars is a roller coaster, and we're on our way up right now. We're about to peak at the top. Where you get to the top, you can see everything. You're like, everything's good right here. Nothing needs to change. And then inevitably it's going to crash and everything's going to fall apart again. But Ahsoka, definitely worth watching. I think it's a little better than Rogue One. I'd say Rogue One's an 8 out of 10, But anyways, that's kind of where I rank it. If that, I don't know if you agree with me, disagree, but I think that's pretty conclusive right there. I don't know. I probably left out some minor things, but I just wanted to talk about Ahsoka. I'm not going to go through every episode bit by bit, breakdowns. There's breakdowns. Everyone's breaking it down. I'm not trying to break it down. I'm trying to just talk about it. So let me know what you think about Ahsoka, where you would kind of rank it. What do you think about it? I thought it was amazing. Tell me if it's not amazing, tell me why. Tell me why it's not amazing. And I don't want to hear anything that doesn't make sense. I don't want to hear anything dumb about it. It was fantastic. R.I.P. Ray Stevenson, but his performance was amazing. This, Hayden, amazing. He's going to be coming back. Rosario Dawson, amazing. Only thing that would make this better is if Palpatine returned. All right, guys. There it is. You got a 30-minute episode today about Ahsoka and Star Wars. I love talking about Star Wars. It's been a while, so stay tuned for more Star Wars episodes because I'm having fun with this. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in episode 30.